Hi, I'm Asaf Avidan, and you can join me on Harmony Loves Music.
My life is like a wound. I scratch so I can bleed. Look good, you tell my way.
So to start that interview, like I told you, I discovered you 3 years ago. At this time, you were a group with the Mojos.
Right.
Why are you coming back today with a solo album?
It's difficult to put it down to one reason. You know, I've often said it's like a relationship with a girlfriend. I mean, once you split up, it's not just one reason. It's not you left the toilet seat up. It's there was a combination of the fact that the Mojos are creative individuals, and they needed in Asaf Avidan in the Mojos, I was the one composing and writing all the songs, and they needed their artistical outlet. And also the fact that I needed my artistic outlet. It seems weird because I was writing the songs, but a bit confined into kind of a generic rock, blues, folk, whatever you want to call it, band. The fact that we had, you know, a bass guitar, 2 electric guitars, and one set of drums, and, you know, we had cello, which was a bit different, but we had this generic old school kind of sound, and I needed to experiment. I needed more colors in the palette. So it was just kind of like a first girlfriend that you really love each other, but you don't know how to make a relationship work, and you burn it out a bit too quickly. So all these reasons together, I think, is why I'm right now here in a solo.
So let's talk a little bit about Israel.
Yes.
Because you're coming from that beautiful country.
Yeah.
I've seen a video on the internet. You were talking about a funny thing, a funny story. Maybe it was the first time you've been in India.
Yeah.
And you were playing there and nobody knew you. And the only thing they knew is that you were Israeli.
Yeah, so they wanted us to sing
Havana Gila.
Yeah.
Very funny, of course.
Yeah.
It underlines the fact that maybe in some countries over the world, there are still prejudices or wrong ideas about Israeli culture.
But you can say that about every culture. I mean, when you bring an American to Israel, the basic perception of Israel, he's coming from a capitalistic country, and when you bring a French person, you know, they're always on vacation, or they eat baguettes, you know. Everybody, the kind of very low quality definitions of what cultures are in the minds of other cultures are so pathetic. I don't know. They're ridiculous, and especially nowadays, you know, there's no real reason for it. You know, you have the internet; it's a global world.
Sure.
You can really communicate to different people all around the world, and the sad lesson that we learned from internet, we're living for, I don't know, 20 years now with internet, is that it does break some barriers between. It does help you communicate to others, but most people use it to stay in small groups and hubs that are controlled by nationality, religion, the social, economic, or whatever. The people still have this obsession about being in a tight, limited group. And even if it's not somebody from India wanting me to sing Havana Gila, it's an interesting, experienced French reporter asking me about the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, as though that's the only thing that Israel has. It's okay. I mean, I understand that that's what people perceive when they see the news, and they have limited source of information about what it is. So.
My other question was asking you if you feel like a representative of the Israeli culture. I don't mean because your music is in English, of course.
I don't think there's an Israeli culture. I think Israeli culture, if you have to define it, is the fact that it's so eclectic. The fact that Israel is very young. It's 60 years old for anybody who doesn't know the history of Israel. It's made out of immigrants from different races, different cultures, different geographical places. I mean, some of them are from North Africa, some of them from the Middle East, some of them are from Europe. There's a lot from what used to be the USSR, because once that fell apart in the 90s. There's now immigrants coming from Africa, like the middle of Africa. There's so many colors, so many sounds, so many different things, and the only thing that combines this is supposedly, not everybody, most of the people are not religious, but supposedly the belief of a monotheistic God made up, 3,000 years ago. And so it's really weird to say Israeli culture. I think the beauty of being an Israeli is that it is a melting pot for different cultures. And the fact that if you look at Israeli food as an example for Israeli art, it's just combined from so many different tastes and spices.
Yeah. Now let's talk about your music.
Okay.
The best part. You have 3 albums already done, and the new one in solo will be out in France in a few days.
Right.
Can you talk about this, how you worked on it, the creation process?
It was a very different process than what I used to do, because the last 3 albums that I did were with the Mojos, and with this album I didn't have the Mojos anymore. And in order for me to start hearing what the song is about, I needed to make everything by myself. So I opened up a computer and started building, I didn't have a set of drums, so I started experimenting with drum loops and computer bass drums, and I didn't have the bass guitar, so I started playing with synthesizers, bass, and all kinds of things like that. That because of the necessity that I didn't have a band to work with, I needed to work layer by layer and do everything myself, at least in the writing process. And then I met Tamir Muscat, the producer for this album. And he comes from the Balkan beatbox. He's their drummer, and he's a happy, optimistic, kind of the exact opposite of me. The melancholy. And I think, and we sat in a room in Tel Aviv, very small room. It's a mixing room. I don't know if anybody knows what a mixing room, but it's really small. It's not supposed to be. You're not supposed to bring instruments and play there. Okay. But that's where we recorded. We brought drums, and it was very tight, and it was just the 2 of us, and we played all the instruments in the album except very few things that we didn't know how to. But anyway, it's been a very different process because it was very intimate and very slow. It was gradually through a long period of time because we were both touring, so we needed we had 2 days here, 1 day.
Okay.
So it was a nice. It was, instead of coming and putting everything together, it was building a structure.
Nice.
Yeah.
And what is very special to your music is your voice, of course.
Okay.
Every video I've seen, it sounds like it comes from the bottom of your soul, for real. Mm-hmm. So how do you explain this?
I don't really explain it. It's something that I do intuitively, but if I did have to, I would say that it comes from the fact that the only reason why I make music is to give an outlet to very profound feelings that there's, when I talk to you right now, it's mask after barrier, things are going on inside all the time. There's hundreds and millions of thoughts simultaneously conflicting each other. And when I'm singing, I really, instead of going through all these masks, it's like I'm slicing it open and presenting it and letting everything come out. So it comes out that way.
That's what we feel. We feel it when you sing. No, for real. And in the song Different Pulses, you say, my life is like a one, I scratch so I can bleed, I write so I can feel.
Yeah.
So you mean that music is really vital, you need it?
It's both. To go back to the metaphor of me slicing myself like a surgeon with no anesthetic, with no painkillers, and I cut myself and I put it out again, and I look at it and I try to figure it out and I put it back and I sew it back up and then I open it back. It's a healing process in a way, because I'm trying to fix stuff, but it's a painful process because I'm not a surgeon. I'm working with an axe and a chainsaw and trying to do the best with what I have but I need it. It's a good process for me because it helps me understand myself better.
Okay.
Helps me be calmer. Once I let it out, I'm okay until the next time.
Okay.
But it's a hurtful one.
Yeah. Talking about your voice, lots of people compare it to Janis Joplin's voice.
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel flattered?
Of course.
Of
You
course.
cannot be flattered by that comparison. She's obviously one of, if not the best vocalists ever. And but I think after people hear this album, I think it's going to differ because I'm using other colors.
Okay.
I'm trying. I'm really hoping that people find my own uniqueness to my voice.
Well, thank you very much for answering to my question.
Thank you.
My life is like a wound. I scratch so I can bleed.